Hey, future proofing has a new weight to it during our current crisis. We're usually talking about future proofing against changes that Google or Microsoft may throw at us. But how do we secure our business through this time? Automation in time of crisis. Today on The Edge.
Your weekly digital marketing trends with industry trend-setting guests. You're listening and watching Edge of the Web. Winners of Best Podcast from the Content Marketing Institute for 2017. Hear and see more at edgeofthewebradio.com. Now, here's your host, Aaron Sparks.
All right, hey, this is Edge of the Web Radio, episode 348. I'm your host, Aaron Sparks. Every week, we are bringing you amazing guests to chat about digital marketing trends and news from around the planet. We unpack a key marketing topic each and every week for our digital marketing audience. So whether you're part of an agency or a freelancer or part of a marketing firm or an organization that has an internal marketing firm, this show is for you. So you want to be sure to check out all the recent shows over at edgeofthewebradio.com. That's edgeofthewebradio.com. If you're new to the show, welcome. Thanks for joining us. If you're listening or watching the live stream, thanks for joining us. We do this each and every Monday at 3 p.m. If you want to know the ropes, this is where we start with our live show, our live guest interview, and then we swing around and take all of our audio to podcast, iTunes, Google Play, Google Podcast, Stitcher, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Spotify, TuneIn, Player FM, and sundry other aggregators. And along with that, we'll take all of our content, move it into show notes, as well as different transcripts, as well as social media. So you can find a lot of what we're talking about in all the different lanes of the new media consumption highway. So if check out what we do over at edgeofthewebradio.com. And we're actually brought to you by our title sponsor, Site Strategics. They're sponsor of the show. They're pioneers in the agile digital marketing. Their focus specialties are technical SEO, search engine marketing, social media marketing, and the like, content marketing, as well as website development. So basically omni-channel marketing or media creation as well, such as what we're doing here on Edge of the Web. So if you're interested in what we can do for you, simply just give us a call over at 877-SEO for Web. Have a free online Skype or Zoom meeting and kind of unpack some of the possible changes that you can make to your digital marketing campaigns that will improve things greatly. So check us out over at sitestrategics.com and just give us a call, 877-736-4932. In the quarantine studio booth, we have Jacob Mann, the studio creative director, sir.
Hello.
You do look like you're in a aquarium.
If you look carefully, I can see your reflection right here. So everyone knows I'm behind glass. I'm
exactly.
Perfectly safe over here.
Perfectly safe until I walk through that door.
Well, but yeah. And
then you have to put on the cone of silence. You have to wear the hazmat suit, right?
Exactly.
So we did get the call from our governor today.
Yes, we did.
We have a nice 2-week shelter-at-home mandate.
Yep.
So for everybody who's listening or paying attention to our live stream most likely won't come from this studio in the next couple of weeks, but we will be streaming and we will be bringing you a show. So stay tuned. We'll be still giving you some great information from some great guests regularly, but we just won't be here.
It's not too late to put iPads on the chairs,
right,
and remote in and do everything remote into the studio. So never mind.
We could do like remote Aaron, like remote Sheldon, right?
Yes.
Flat Sheldon's going to sit right here with me.
Or the drones from I was at Amazon show about all the senators. No, I don't know. Alpha House. They had guys flying around with drones with their iPads hanging down, yelling at senators.
Are you serious?
It's funny. Anyway.
No, I didn't. Thanks for the imagery, though. Certainly, we'll cue that up for our stream queue, because I think
Netflix parties.
We are binging galore over at the house. Let you know who we're going to be talking to in the upcoming shows here, and this is again as it is as much as we can dial it in right now, we may actually have to adjust a couple of things. But we have Amy Bishop on the 30th next week. We have John Henshaw the first week of April 6th. And we also have Lily Ray coming back on 4/20. So if you're interested in being part of the show, or would like us to actually interview somebody that you would like to hear from, let us know. We can certainly jump in and grab a hold of their attention and get them on the show here. Just email us at info@edgeofthewebradio.com or hit us up on the socials. We'll certainly pay attention to it. And set your reminders on YouTube and get notified when we go live with these shows each and every Monday. All right, lastly, Edge fans, we want to know a little bit about you and what you want to hear from the show. We're running a quick poll on the site. We've been doing it for about a month, and we're getting some great data. If you go over to edgeofthewebradio.com, just answer a couple quick questions. There's no email requirement, so you can answer anonymously, and let us know what you're interested in hearing more of, actually, in 2020. Jump on over to the site real quick, and then let us know what you think. If you'd like to have more dad jokes, you can also fill it in right there. We're getting some good feedback, so chime in with the rest of our dedicated audience. All right, so that's housekeeping. For this week, be sure to check out our news podcast, the bonus episode of each and every interview podcast. We rolled through a good deal of some great articles for the show today with Aaron Levy, and had some good takes on some issues, as well as talking about the most recent Google update changes. So be sure to dial that in as quickly as you can. So for all of us over at Edge, we're going to jump right now into talking deep diving with this week's featured guest.
Now it's time for Edge of the Web featured interview with Aaron Levy, Group Director at Tenuti.
So Aaron's on the line, and I appreciate Aaron hanging out there and going through our gratuitous plugs and what have you. Aaron, how you doing today, sir?
I'm doing well. I said this to you when we first started, but I think I can speak for the entire world where I'm really excited for an hour of human contact.
Yeah, Aaron hasn't talked much in the last day here, so he was eager to jump in, and we've been shooting the proverbial what do you call that? Can't really do that on there, can we? But thanks for coming on board, man. I am very sorry for your name spelling there. I mean, you probably could have actually found time to change it to the right spelling of Aaron, right?
I get your name on my coffee cup all the time. It works out. I don't know how they do this, but I don't know if you did it or told them or what.
I did, actually. I put an order in and asked them if there's a special premium that you can get on the Starbucks app, and just if you wouldn't mind, stalk Aaron Levy and drop my name in front of him. All right, so Aaron, it's been great getting you on board here. We certainly had Elizabeth Martson on a couple times here on the show, good friend of the show. You're the group director of SEM over at Tenuti. For those who don't know Aaron, he's also internationally known as a recognized speaker over at Search Engine Land, Search Engine Journal, and a 7-time member of PPC Heroes' most influential list. Damn, that's pretty good. In addition to his roles at Tenuti, Aaron's also an adjunct at Drexel and University of Vermont. Wow. As well as a student mentor at Villanova, working to grow the next generation of marketers. Cool, man.
Thank you.
That's awesome. Giving back in education. You don't see that much. You do see a number of influencers communicating and helping lift up the entire marketplace, but you're going back to where it really needs to start in the classrooms.
If whenever I talk to digital marketers and they say like, "Oh my goodness, I have like the biggest trouble with hiring. Where do you find good people?"
Sure.
Grow your own. It's always baffled me, and those of you that do know me, or those of you that don't, I am not what one might consider a normal professional. I don't take myself too seriously. I think like most of us in the industry, we love being in this industry because it's really fun.
Yeah.
And if you think back to when you went to college, or when you went to career fairs or whatever, it's very serious and very difficult, and everyone must have a straight face and a suit. So I really enjoy being, I'm going to call myself the cool professor, even though it's probably not true, but I really enjoy
did I laugh out loud? I'm sorry.
I really enjoy humanizing our work and being like, Absolutely. Look, it's a professional industry. It's also not a professional industry. We have a different definition of professionalism. So It's an area where being yourself is rewarded, not not punished.
And you're probably getting, I mean, you're now teaching digital natives. And they probably have such a new or a fresh and intuitive mind towards digital marketing. At least you'd hope so.
It's interesting. You don't have to remind them as much, but there's a bit of naivety in terms of how the back end works. So you think of ad targeting or all this information that passes along. Right. Pretty recently, I was at Villanova for a case competition, and the case was Facebook, and the understanding of what Facebook uses and what the quote unquote hacks were, and whether they were actually hacks or not, or if it's just someone skirting the rules. That sort of stuff. The how the sausage is made is the more fun part to educate on.
That's interesting. I would assume that kids in college actually have a larger understanding of the marketing engine, but they certainly know how to interact with it. They certainly know when they're being advertised to. They just don't know all the intricacies of how to actually connect to that audience, right?
Well, right. And teaching digitally native students from a digital perspective, I don't go to Vermont. I'm based in Philadelphia, and I'm sure I just painted my walls to match the Vermont logo. That's why I picked this color.
Subconscious or not.
Exactly. But no, the interesting part is they're aware they're being marketed to. They're not entirely aware of how. They get the obvious. They know when a pair of shoes is following them around. But there's also this certain fear of, oh my goodness, my phone is listening to me. Like, no, it's not. You just talked about it and then search for it. Or you went to websites about whatever this was and then you talked about it. So the understanding of what's possible and not possible and how to get it done and how all these dots connect and what it means when Google says we have a simplified privacy policy. Understanding those sorts of things and passing them around to people it's fun to watch that, oh, I get it eyes. And that almost always.
I bet. Hey, did you come across recently? It was a prototype noise bracelet that people had. That it was. I think it was a Kickstarter, and literally it was a number of different silent speakers or high frequency speakers. That was a disruptor around phones. If you were having a private conversation, you could literally have that, and it was omnidirectional broadcast, and it would actually create such a noise that was dampening all listening devices.
It's like a white noise machine for your body?
For your wrist, man.
That's okay. The future is a weird place.
As I understand it, it's like a high-pitched noise that microphones pick up and have as distortion, but it isn't something that like you would necessarily hear yourself. So it's not like it was like emitting all this noise. So you could turn it on, and then we would have this. So if I turn it on right now, our audience would just hear this, like this really terrible sound.
But we'd be able to hear each other.
We would still. Well, I don't know with the microphones and stuff. But if we're standing together in a room.
And that was the entire thing. It's just this mobile white noise. Again,
Cone of silence.
It is the cone of silence. It actually is. But I was just going back to, my phone's listening to me. Well, talk about the extreme response to that is, okay, let's all white, let's wear white noise jewelry. That's literally what the hell that is.
I'm sure that'll be a real thing someday. I just hope. I hope by that point I live in the mountains.
All right. I think we all want to right about now. Hey, you run a large team of over 60 SEM professionals across the country, and you're usually collectively overseeing an annual budget in the high nine figures, dude. You're focused on strategy process and future proofing against anything that happens from the Google or Microsoft world. I mean, tell me a little bit about your job right now and managing all these search engine marketing professionals.
Oh yeah, this was definitely a scenario that we had drawn out for, and we had a plan that we could. No one saw this coming. But so it's been an interesting adventure because people who are familiar with SEM know that it's been a huge push towards automation, machine learning, AI, whatever you want to call it, even though it's machine learning. but obviously all of the tools that Google and Microsoft and Facebook all have that has all these huge data sets, and they say, okay, like you don't have to bid or pick keywords or whatever. We can do it. We can just look at the past data or the last 30 days or whatever. It's been fun because the last 30 days aren't right anymore. The last 30 days are nothing like the next 30.
Yep.
The last 30 seconds are nothing like the next 30 anymore.
Everything's new. Everything's fresh. And there's no case for this at all.
Well, right. And it's what it's turned into is an interesting study. When you look at the stock market circuit breakers that are happening now, we're like, okay, if something goes down 10%, pause for 15 minutes so we can figure out what's going on. To a degree, most automation should have those circuit breakers in place. You have volatility watches. I often call current state of machine learning that is kind of like a Roomba. It assumes everything is good, and it will drive around until it bumps into something bad, and then it'll turn hard the other way.
Right.
So this is a scenario where every day is either amazing or the worst day ever, or amazing or the worst day ever. So we have a really confused Roomba on our hands, which means that we have to have a lot of these circuit breakers, just like you might have. Is there a huge volatility swing, or is something popping or dropping, or if it is happening, what do we do about it? Do we just tolerate it because that's the way the world works and demand is dictating it? Or do we take a manual action and just say, like, we're going to turn it off, or we're going to drive the boat for now because we're better at steering in waves because we've seen more waves, or whatever it may be.
Right. And what we're really talking about is also, we got a Roomba that's confused. That's kind of like a Mad Max Roomba. It's got some sharp points to it right now.
Yeah, it does. Things can swing high or low. The other thing that's interesting, and given the phase that we're in now, or frankly any crisis, is the things that are popular now, or the tests that are going to work now, or the things that are going to look good for your brand now, are not the same as they were last month, and they're not the same as they were next month. So, like, an interesting thing to think about is day parting. How people search throughout the day or the week.
Right.
There's no such thing as weekends anymore. And
yeah.
Depending on who you are, there's no lunch rush, there's no evening rush, there's no killing time as you get home.
Nope.
It's all going to flatten out. So all these assumptions and all these years and years of data that we've had to design our strategies are out the window, at least temporarily. I mean, we'll see what happens when the world shakes out and recovers itself.
Right.
I always like the old Simon Pegg, Nick Frost movie, Shaun of the Dead. We're going to go to the Winchester, we're going to have a pint, and we're going to wait for this all to blow over. Only the Winchester is my living room for the next...
Aaron, you got some red on you. That's awesome. Okay, I don't think I've had a better quote for what we're going through right now. Oh, that's awesome. So I want to get into some of the insights of automation that we've been talking about, and how automation can help in this period. But before we get there, give me some before this happened. Can you give me some perspectives of what you've been seeing inside of search engine marketing, or what has just been changing in AdWords? Key elements that maybe have provided some huge value to clients that are now moot, I guess, sometimes to look at this comparatively. So what was happening earlier in 2020 that was notable in SEM?
So all the major platforms are taking the same-ish route, where this is an over-dramatization of it, but give us your credit card and your goals, and we'll do everything else. That's an overstatement, but it's the loose direction of where things are going.
True, yeah.
Okay, there's a lot. Google has a ton more signals that they either don't make available to us, or it becomes a resource problem of quite literally your computer might set on fire if you try to operate on all of them. Or all these decisions that wind up stacking. So a lot of Google's automation, or Microsoft or Facebook, or frankly anyone, I think all of us felt it was a bit shoved down our throats in 2018, 2019. And this year, it's good. It's winding up doing really well. So even while we're in this crazy time, we have some clients that are doing really well, some clients that are doing really poorly, some that are doubling their budget, some are pausing. But what we have seen, which has been a bit surprising, is some of Google's pure automation, like smart bidding, has been reacting the way that we hoped it would react. Now, our clients tend to skew bigger, so they have more data faster.
Sure.
But depending what was happening, it's keeping up. Most of the days, the highs and the lows actually kind of feel like the fourth quarter for a retail client, where every day is predictable, but it's not predictable. So we generally know what products are going to be hot, but maybe there's a news report about a crisis that, oh no, the whole world is running out of left socks. So all of a sudden our left sock spike.
Wow.
We have a lot of food delivery clients or food type clients, and that sort of volatility is a lot more expected, but then, there's the random stuff. What we've been seeing is that Google is actually keeping up on it on an intraday perspective, but some of it is still a little bit delayed. We've talked a bit about how tomorrow is not the same as yesterday, and it's not even going to be close. Some of it's playing catch up on a day-over-day basis, but we're just having to put firmer guardrails around Mr. Roomba to make sure that he doesn't run too far when it does go weird.
Well, I mean, we were aware of some introductions of AI and machine learning in bid management and ad management, and even some automation in the visual ad creation side of things. But we've been fast tracked into that space. Is that safe to say? Is that we're now in a space where we're having to trust that automation, which we were a little bit guarded about when in the last year we were having a number of conversations regarding the new tools that were becoming available in Facebook and AdWords explicitly, and all of a sudden now we're here and we're using them to a much greater degree than we really intended to. Is that correct?
I'd agree with that. The thing to think of, especially in the current state, but for automation in general, whenever, especially as it pertains to personalization or customization or any other Asian, but look at an ad when it goes wrong.
Okay.
When the ad goes wrong, is that still okay? So a good example would be an email vendor, or frankly a Google ad that they use different creative for guys and girls. The males get pizza and beer, and the girls get fancy food and wine. If I get shown a picture of fancy food and wine, that's not that bad. That's okay.
I particularly like fancy food and wine.
I like fancy food and wine, and I also like pizza and beer. So both ones are okay. But now we're in an area where where we have responsive search ads, or where we have all these different headlines shuffled around.
Right.
If those headlines get shuffled around, now they're more at risk to be misinterpreted. I mean, a good example that I just saw this morning is I was calling a plumber because I have a swimming pool in my basement right now. Happy quarantine.
Oh my God.
But what we saw is that like some of the ads say make an appointment or schedule your consultation.
Right.
You can't do that right now.
Yeah,
and you can't expect to do it for a while, and stuff like that, especially when it's automation. We're like, okay, Google's just going to figure it out. You have to give them the right tools to use. And just triggered my okay Google phone. But
use your bracelet, man.
There's a couple of them in here. 1 second.
Exactly. See, Google should know. Google should know that Aaron's on a podcast right now.
Believe it or not, that's actually happened before, but it's usually with an echo, not with the Google Nesty thing.
Oh my God. That's awesome. No, we have to give better guidance, and the challenge is that are we as marketers nuanced enough or aware enough contextually that things have changed in order to be able to give that additional nudge to the Roomba and say, nope, don't go over here anymore.
Well, right, and there's a lot of interesting things too, like you read all the horror stories about people stockpiling hand sanitizer or price gouging or whatever.
Yep.
Or all the masks that have been bought and hoarded and then resold. So in those sorts of scenarios, platforms can't rely on their own AI, their own automation to make those decisions fast enough. So now at this point, Google's basically banning or disapproving, not banning, but disapproving any ad that has anything to do with a mask of any kind.
Right.
So no, if you're buying a lion mask for some reason because you want to look cool on Zoom, you might not be able to see an ad for it. But that, again, that's the sort of thing where it's not a scenario that any automation is ready for. So we'll just block it.
Well, there's no way to anticipate things like this, and you have to have the human element in there. But some of those major dampening executions, right, come with a huge cost. You're damaging a lot of businesses by having that circuit breaker, right, for lack of a better description.
Right. I mean, again, it's about having a trigger. It's about having an understanding of what level of freedom is okay. How much are you willing to lose? How much are you okay with going wrong at the potential of what could go right? And it's just making sure that you protect the downside or protect things that could go wrong, so that if they do go wrong, they're like, it's a little wrong. Like when Aaron triggers his Nest in an interview versus if my internet went out, there would be a different story.
Yeah, we wouldn't want that to happen. All right, so let me ask you this here: as you're witnessing, and certainly you're in the space where predominantly you're working in search engine marketing and display marketing across multiple platforms, but there are certainly decisions being made by organizations on what they're going to invest in right now from a marketing strategy, because SEO, we know, is a long play as opposed to a short play in the SEM space. And have you witnessed, maybe not by your own client decisions, but other conversations in the marketing space where SEO is starting to be downplayed in light of the much more volatile and shifting sands of SEM? It's a good deal more controllable right now in this space than the SEO play, yeah?
Ooh, that's a good question. So I can see this, it's a seesaw a little bit. So SEM has the flexibility from a marketing perspective because we can turn it on and off in a hot second. We can change our strategies in a second. But at the same time, in these times of crisis where to a degree, SEM is also a water faucet. If you turn it off, there's no more water coming out.
Right.
So obviously we can, sure, I'll stick with this metaphor. I can spend all this time making a better faucet, so when we are ready to turn it back on, it flows better. Or, which at that point, you're kind of talking the same strategy that SEO goes for, where it's a longer play. So it's a good investment to make in a time like this, because you know it's going to take a while to get the effects.
Right.
You know that a lot of the effects are right, even if you don't see results right away.
Yep.
So it's time to invest as a marketer in those really longer term strategies. And from an SEM perspective, this is a good time to rebuild your account if you're paused, or a good time to reevaluate all of your tests that you had forever, or a good time to do all of your oil changes at once that you've been waiting for in a while. These things are deferred maintenance, if you will. It's a good time to take care of all of that.
Yep.
And then if you're a larger scale retailer or a business to business company or something that is maybe struggling a little bit, this is the time where you should really look at customers. We're seeing a lot of our customers, as I mentioned a bit before, instead of customer acquisition, because any customer you acquire now is just one panicking. Might be panicking, or it's not your normal customer.
Right.
So in turn, what we're going to wind up doing is seeing a lot of who is your best customer, how do you keep them, how do you communicate with them, what do you do if they're searching for something that you sell? Do you push it hard, or do you just sort of acknowledge that you're there?
Right.
It's a complicated time.
No, it is a complicated time, and that's a huge challenge. It's not only about what medium or what tactic you're going to utilize, but also knowing what you have to change contextually with that tactic, and how you actually even measure success. And that's where you're really going for here is conversions aren't conversions that were here 45 days ago. We're in a whole new space, so it's not only you have to actually have a better relationship with your customer, but on top of it, you also have to now start looking at different behaviors of customers. That it's not that conversion funnel that we were used to. That lead gen is the key goal. We're actually now looking at much more of different types of behavior. You have to look at a further out lens to actually put against different KPIs, as opposed to being held to the almighty transaction, right?
Right. Well, I think that's the direction that the broader web is moving to when we think about analytics as a whole, is that it's if you treat things as a transactional relationship, you're not going to last forever. Right. So you have to look at what are you going to do with that customer once you get them? How are you going to treat them? How are you going to talk to them? How long are they going to stick around? Now, us being search people, either SEO or paid, are in an interesting spot because search is an upper to mid funnel in most cases and lower funnel for like branded terms and stuff like that. But if you think about it, we're in a spot where something happens that makes people search. Then all of our searchy stuff happens. And then they're a customer, and then we get them back through some other channels. We sort of occupy this space in the middle where, again, when we're in a time of crisis like now,
right,
if people are searching, it's not normal. It's likely due to desperation, boredom, or finally getting around to something because they have the time to look into it.
Right.
But thinking about where it fits and relative to what happens afterwards and what you do with that person after that transaction does happen. If you choose to keep them, if you choose to let them go, whatever it may be, there are different strategies that we're going to have to take.
Okay. Well, with that, how in the world do we know what foot to lead with right now? And I get this back to the core element of utilizing automation in a time of crisis. What can we rely on in this? Because if the world is changing so much and the consumer is changing, behaviors have not been predictable, or the new predictable is different than the old predictable, and you just threw in so many different behaviors of bored behavior as opposed to intent. I mean, literally traipsing around and just spending more time in the YouTube channels. That's literally what's happening right now. So our data is all off on how to actually track effectively. So how do we use automation to be able to help clear that haze that we're now experiencing?
So to a degree, you have to trust what you came up with before. We've been through a few, basket analyses or term analyses of, okay, if a person searches on X, they wind up being a customer that's worth 3 times normal. If they wind up searching on Y, they wind up being a customer that's half as valuable as normal.
Right.
Even now in our times of randomness or our times of change or our times of temporary closures, that probably isn't going to change.
Yeah.
So what you can do is you can trust some of the automation signals that you've set up already, but just knowing how they can go wrong, and again, how wrong you're willing to let them go. So you can still trust everything that you set up before, but what you have to do is make sure that you trust your fail-safes, because I think that's the biggest challenge. Just like how, there's some of these ad assumptions that we set in place forever ago, we likely set our fail-safes a while ago too, because they've never happened.
Right.
Our fail-safe is never triggered. So it's a good time now to double check and make sure where your fail-safes are. So when they do trigger, it's okay.
For our listeners, give us an example of a fail-safe when it comes down to some marketing automation.
Okay, say campaigns impressions double or drop.
Right.
Drop by 50% over the course of a day.
Right.
Normally, we'd look a little bit longer time period, but given how quick it was, like, okay, if your impressions drop by more than half over a day, odds are something in your campaign got flagged or volume spiked or dropped.
Right.
The other thing to think of is, since most of Google's smart bidding is primarily based on predicted conversion rate, we might set an alert, which we normally wouldn't do, but set an alert for big conversion rate spikes, because that likely means that whatever product you're selling or whatever product got picked up, it probably got pushed out in some sort of a viral sense and got picked up by a ton of people.
Right.
So that little flash in the pan is just going to be that. It'll be a flash in the pan.
So go ahead, keep on going.
So making sure that smart bidding doesn't take yesterday and say, hey, we got a 15% conversion rate, we're going to bid like we're going to 15% conversion rate forever.
Right.
Putting a block of that in place.
Much more standing vigil on these numbers than ever before. And if you're seeing these type of behaviors, don't allow the smart bidding to actually take those full instructions and march that way because things are so volatile, and I hate using that word over and over again, but things are changing, and contextually, day to day, things are changing that could actually spin your marketing campaign out if you have an unchecked automation system. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. The machines are really good at doing what we tell them to do. Mm-hmm. We just have to make sure that we're telling them the right thing on every given day.
Absolutely. And so let me ask you another question here, not only about fail-safes and reading the dials more frequently and with a new intent, but for marketers or for companies that are not paying attention to how their ad reads or displays in this particular moment in time, it could very well be construed as tone deaf if you're not addressing your graphics, your contextual messages. You got to have that internal knowledge of how it could be construed right now.
Right, exactly. I'll cite two examples of it. Mm-hmm. So I'm not normally a Facebook person, but I've spent a ton of time on Facebook, which I don't know if this is the good behavior to get when you're self-isolated, but
we'll have a detox later.
Yeah, but anywho, I saw an ad for a storage company, and it was just like their stock ad. Like, it was an ad that was fine.
Right.
And out of curiosity, I just sort of poked into the comments, and every single comment was someone who was raging about how can you even advertise in a time like this? Why are you around? Oh my goodness! Like, there's all these kids who are students and are looking for a place to live, and you're advertising to them.
Right.
Just get in front of it. I'm not saying that you have to take a strong stand one way or the other, but in that particular case, say, we're still available. We have these special services if you want. It might take us a little while to get back.
Yeah,
there were some emails that I've gotten from some fun brands have a relatively on brand take on it, but an email or an ad where it's, we have stuff in stock. It's going to take a while to get to you. If you're okay, we'd love to have your order regardless. Something like that. Right. But just getting ahead of it and putting a stake into what you want your brand to read as, and just stand there. The thing that that is wrong is just keep doing what you're doing.
Sticking your head in the sand and thinking that there's no change to your marketing, no change to your environment. I mean, literally, we're in a space where you could really upset people if you have an inadvertent claim or an inadvertent joviality in a very serious position or scenario. You gotta know where your ads are being delivered, but you also have to put yourself in the shoes of the recipient. Does this pass muster during this particular period of time, right?
Well, right, and that's why we're getting 1,000,001 emails about here's how Aaron's sock company is reacting to COVID-19, or again, whatever.
Yep.
But that's sort of the sledgehammer approach,
right?
But there's 1,000,001 brand messages out there, and people don't often think of search as a brand message, but realistically it is. So when people are searching for your company, the telecommunication space has been really interesting to watch. If you're searching for Zoom versus Ring Central versus Uber Conference and just seeing the messages they're putting out there, some maybe dance around virtue signaling a little bit too much. Some are maybe a little bit tone deaf. Some are not. But it's important to have other people read your ads. So again, in the spirit of us being socially isolated, so I can't exactly yell to my backdoor neighbor. Actually, I probably could.
I think you could.
I live in a row house. She's right there.
We'll get her on the show. Let's go.
But have someone read them who is not in the industry. That would be my advice. See how they read to a quote unquote common person.
Wow. Yeah.
The other thing that I would wholly recommend is this is a time when frequency capping will come into place. So there's a certain clothing brand that I won't call out, but it's a very major one. I've seen the same commercial. I saw it 26 times yesterday, which goes to show just how many YouTube videos I watched.
Wow.
Which was a lot of them. But media consumption habits are going to be very, 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 very different for foreseeable future. So you can come off as tone deaf again by being repetitive or by just sort of being there that much. So you have to check in on all these things and making sure that you're in front of the right content as well. I mean, YouTube or display or frankly still search. There's a lot of content out there that is all about COVID that might be a race to get the right message across, and that message turns out to be wrong, and your ad served next to this piece of content.
Right.
And maybe the Philadelphia Inquirer was a great place to have your ads before, but maybe now you'd prefer to just like, we're not going to be there.
Yeah. And that's a whole other side of the equation here is now filtering to a much greater degree where you thought was safe space in the news space, but actually having your ad right next to some pretty dire content, or you have a whole nother level of brand association that you may want to steer clear of, right?
Well, right. And I mean, thinking about your own site and the messaging that you put across, almost everybody has a banner or a page or a pop-up or something that showcases, here's what we're doing. Right. Here's how we're reacting, whatever. Is that page getting indexed? Is that page getting crawled by dynamic search ads? Probably. So making sure that those areas where this is a piece of information that is meant for people who get here, but it is not meant to be pushed out into the world. Right. Making sure that you have protections for that, and make a decision on things like, I'll call them questions. So think about Nordic Track. A ton of people are working out at home now because they have to. Yep. Or not, as the case may be for myself. But so look, if you're Nordic Track and people search for will Nordic Track deliver during the coronavirus, you should probably have an answer to that. But in the world of search automation, you're going to show for that query regardless. So again, getting ahead of automation and maybe giving it some new guardrails and pointing out, like, here's what we do want people to see if they ask about it. If they don't, here's the other message.
Yep, absolutely. So you just got to know where your ads are being moved into, what new spaces are, and you can't guarantee everything in the automation space, but you certainly can put some internalized breakers on distribution, and just have to have that level of care now. I should not care, carefulness that maybe you didn't think through setting up these different campaigns. That wasn't necessary at the time. Any final thoughts on the realm of automation in a time of crisis? Because it does have a bit of an antithetical relationship. Is that automation is to be able to move on singular or somewhat similar messaging, and if you're in an environment that is changing so much so quickly, it does challenge the efficacy of an automated campaign. But you're telling us that there's some good governors that you can put in place. Any final thoughts in that space of guidance for our listeners who are running automation campaigns, perhaps very complex ones that they've put together for their clients, and it could very well be looked on as quite daunting, having to look at it with fresh new eyes there?
Yeah, this is, in both ways, this is a time that we've never been in before. But if you step back and look at it as just, binary, is this going to perform well or not? There are periods that look like this. There are periods that have dynamic swings day over day, and there are inventory issues. I pointed to holiday for retail. And frankly, the end of a quarter for most B2B companies tends to look a little wacky too.
Right.
So odds are that the automation that you have running now or were running recently is not new. Odds are that it has been running a while. So if you want to know how well you can trust it or how little you can trust it, look at those times when things were extremely volatile before. Look at that time that you had a stock issue. Right. Look at that time that it was Black Friday and your best product sold out, or you're the only one who had the right Tickle Me Elmo for a given year. Who knows? But look at these extremely volatile periods and see what automation did. And if it reacted okay, then it's still going to react okay now. But if you take a look at it and see that, like, oh, it panicked, or oh boy, like this is going to be looking way too long, either turn it off or set better guardrails. And as we go forward and we emerge from whatever this crisis is, this pandemic, you're going to have to give your automation some time to relearn. So when we find a new normal, it's going to have to learn what normal is.
Yeah. And you're gonna have to reset it back too. Is that there will be a place where this is not an issue, guys, and I gotta have faith that it's going to pass in hopefully in quick order. But the fact of the matter is, you also have to be able to reset this because you gotta straighten out your delivery to be able to make most of your automation tools as well. So just be a better shepherd for how you're managing your automation platforms. I think is probably the best lesson learned here, and you should be in that space all the time, shouldn't you?
Exactly. I mean, look, automation isn't a silver bullet. I love it. I often call myself the laziest search marketer in the world. Not because I'm truly lazy, but because I work really hard to not work very hard. Because if there's a button that has to be pushed 1,000 times, I don't want to push it 1,000 times. So let's find something that can do that. But I mean, again, in this era where the button changes every day,
right?
You just have to figure out if the machine's capable of catching up. And sometimes that means staring at it, scoreboard watching. And other times it means comparing it to a period in crisis.
Yep.
Or a period of weird behavior.
And get some additional third-party insight, because you can also stare right at something and not realize what you're staring at. You got to have a little bit additional consult with your peers. And the last thing I wanted to talk about here, Aaron, I appreciate your time today,
of course,
was management of an SEM team. Now, you have a fleet of SEM professionals, and most of them are at home right now. They should actually be watching your show right now. That's where they should be.
No, they shouldn't. They should be doing work.
Well, instead of a multidiscipline agency, even in the digital space, Tenuity actually specializes in search marketing. What difficulties have you experienced during your management time with that specific set of skills inside of search marketing? Something unique probably than most agencies have experienced.
Well, we've evolved into a full service agency now, so a bigger challenge that we're having is connecting all of the dots together, which is hard because there's no standing up and talking to your desk neighbor. But what we've really strived to do is to maintain randomness. So there's all these tips about setting up your office, having a nice comfy chair, having a room that you can work in comfortably. But something that you can't really replicate is the water cooler talks, the conversations, the body language reading, things like that. So I do my best as a manager to maintain that randomness. And when I have a team of my size, I don't talk to every person every day. I don't talk to every person every week, but I try to make sure to roll through the cycle and make sure that I'm keeping in touch with everybody and making sure that I can get a feel for what I would get from looking at someone, and get a feel for how they're doing, get a feel for what they're working on, getting a feel if they're excited or not. In terms of managing them as an SEM team,
right? It's
65 great SEMs. I don't have to watch over their shoulders. They're fine. They know what to do. And I'm sure most of the listeners on this as well are much the same way, that I don't have to tell people to turn on. I have to tell people to turn off.
Right.
Making sure that, people are sharing what they're doing, making sure that we don't have it's not good enough, it's not as cool as what this person did. Making sure that communication is fostered and encouraged is the key to a longer growth of a bigger team, particularly with regards to working remote.
Absolutely, that's great perspective. What would you say to some of the businesses that are finding themselves in the remote space now? From a management standpoint, you already started to go that route. For a manager who's about to get into remote, in fact, we're about to go into remote setting over here at site. So give me some guidance. How do we lift up individuals whenever they're now in their home environment? There are so many other triggers of distraction in that space. How do we help them prosper in those environments?
So my recommendation for everyone on that is to set boundaries and keep them and communicate them. Yep. And I mean that both internally and externally. Think of the things that you would do in your normal work life. Do you eat lunch at your desk, or do you go to a kitchen, or do you go to a restaurant? Okay, whatever that is, do it now. For me personally, it's been I go down and I eat in the kitchen. I bought a giant indoor putting green because what else am I going to do? So I go and hit some putts. And same token with understanding what those boundaries are, especially for those who are newly working from home without daycare,
right,
or working from home with a noisy spouse, or if it's 3 roommates who live in a 2-bedroom house,
right.
sometimes that may mean that your work hours are different. In our industry and in most industries, that's totally okay. It doesn't really matter if you work at noon or midnight.
Mm-hmm.
But what you do have to do is you have to communicate those expectations out to everybody, and everybody has to stick to them and respect them. So we have a few team members that they share daycare duty with their spouse. So, okay, Lauren might work from 9 to noon and then from 6 to 10.
Right.
And then she's off from noon to 6. So myself as a manager, I need to make sure that she sticks to that, and I have to stick to it as well. So you didn't respond to my Slack, so I texted you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's because I got 4 kids over here that are really bored.
Right.
But so making sure that you keep all of that and keep expectations super clear. Otherwise, people are just going to sit at their computer and stare and wonder what to do.
And there's a whole nother level of potential depression in that space if morale's not supported, and there is something to be said about being in the office with your team and reading body language and being able to literally give the attaboy, right? But this is a challenging environment for a lot of organizations and managers that don't know how to do that. So, do you know of any blogs or resources out there that you can help point customers to, or I should say companies to, that need a little bit of assistance there? And this was spur of the moment, so don't worry if you don't have anything right at the top of the list.
Well, there's been it's a blessing and a curse, right? Because there are now 10 million how to work remote resources. 9,999,000, like 997 of them are the same. But there was one that was posted on Harvard Business Review pretty recently that they've had a couple of good series, and they always do. I wrote a post that we talked about internally about trying to, not necessarily about the work from home thing and like get your own office and whatever, but
right.
How do you preserve mental health, your own routine, communication with your peers, friends. So I have a post that's centered around that. But generally speaking, most of the business leaders that you follow they're writing good stuff now.
Yeah.
Just from a different mindset. But I think the other thing that is the last thing is that maybe is a bit of a remote blocker is that once everyone gets settled in and gets used to it, at least in our industry, it's the same.
Yeah.
You're losing some of the randomness, but in this current state, you wouldn't have a lot of randomness anyway because people would just be talking about the same thing.
Right.
But it's not that different. So we don't have to talk about it like it's revolutionizing work or, oh my God, it's the same. It's just from a different location.
Yeah. For the most part, for all of us in the knowledge industry, your same dashboards are there.
Exactly.
You got to work it. It's not like you're changing vocations and all of a sudden you have to do something completely different in that space. It's just the discipline of knowing how to discipline yourself and making sure that you do have your boundaries and distractions limited as much as possible.
I will give one last point on that of the quote unquote welcome distractions. How many times do you sit at the same chair for 9 hours a day?
You'd be surprised. I sit in that chair for a long ass time.
Right, but do you stand up and go to a conference room, or do you go to go to get a coffee, whatever it may be?
Yep.
I've personally found a lot of success in manipulating the same way. I obviously know, you have to set up a workspace and only work from there. Yeah, but I have a couple of those. So, like, my kitchen's a conference room, my dining room's a conference room, the guest bedroom's a conference room. So the whole change of scenery or the feel of moving to a different location in the office, don't be shy about replicating that for yourself. It can save you a lot of headspace.
Just don't have the Zoom session in the bathroom. Okay, people, there are limits to everything. And there's one right there.
Depends on the art that you have. You never know.
Okay. See, I'm just going to step away from that visual. Wow. All right. So, Aaron, we really appreciate your time today. Can you tell me what bugs you in your industry right now?
Oh, boy.
In 30 words or less.
What bugs me in our industry is sort of the same thing that bugs me about media in general, is that a ton of generalizations and a ton of everything's black and white. It's either amazing or terrible. What I would say is, especially when it comes to automation and all these bid tools, there's the old, I forget who it was, but if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem looks like a nail.
Right.
I think we're kind of on the opposite side of this, where we have nails and we keep on going to the same hammer. And like, there's a lot of stuff out there that you can use, and there's a lot of nuances, and all these tools are tremendously powerful. There's no, what's a good benchmark for X, Y, and Z? I don't know, man, because your company is different from every other one. So looking into how the sausage is made, looking into how a tool works, looking into what elements of it will serve your purpose, understanding what the machine actually does, I think is something that is vanishing a bit from our industry. And instead we're like, we look at tool and tool says it does this, so we make tool do that. And like, it did that, but there's more to it than that. So I often say that my greatest asset is probably curiosity. And this is a particular case where it goes well. So I think the more of our industry can understand the nuances of all these super crazy powerful tools, and not just look at it being a nail and you have a hammer to hit it with. Understanding the nuances are what's going to propel us forward.
Hey, it's time to educate ourselves into areas that maybe we just had postponed for a good deal. And you're right; these tools are fantastic, and it's a shame that we can be somewhat linear in our thinking of what the analysis is that's being provided to us. Conversely, what excites you about your industry right now?
The same thing, a different way.
Well, you are a lazy marketer.
I only pick one thing to talk about, and that is it. But no, I think a lot of those bad habits that we built over the course of 10, 15 years that I talked about before, that looking at a conversion as a transactional relationship or the end-all be-all of behavior, I think that we're moving a good deal past that. And obviously, the future with cookie challenges and tracking challenges, and everyone having their own gardens that no one can come play in. What's really exciting is that's forcing us to look at the data that we do have, our first-party data, and what we can manipulate. And that's the stuff that was so good for so long that we, for some reason, forgot about. Search and digital, in a way, is modern direct marketing, but we're just now learning what made direct marketing good for the past 100 years. So I think us getting really good at that and looking, again, beyond a transactional relationship and understanding people a lot more will help us all become better marketers, and will hopefully make the internet a better place.
Very good. Very good. All right. Well, what is it like cooking for a sitting prime minister?
That was a weird adventure because Secret Service had to watch me make all the food. I grew up in Ithaca, New York, which is right by Cornell, and so was the Prime Minister of Uganda was there for his child's graduation, and there were 4 or 5 Secret Service cars, and someone watched me make the salad. It was a strange adventure.
That'd be creepy.
It was. I was surprised they didn't ask to taste it, but I guess they trust us.
You could have thrown them for a loop and start throwing a bunch of wild peppers in there, and no, trust me, it's going to be good. It's going to be good.
Well, it's making me ask a lot of questions now. Like, so does someone go to culinary school just to work for the Secret Service?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, if I was watching you cook, I wouldn't know.
But that begs the question. Like, the Secret Service guys know how to do everything, and they just make sure they're doing it right? I don't know. Or was the guy just standing there to making sure I didn't put, like, a razor blade in the candy, like the old Halloween Tales?
He was looking for a bottle with the skull and crossbones on it. He didn't see that, so he knew everything was fine.
Just a giant jug labeled poison.
Exactly. As long as it's not there. Oh, wow, that's funny. All right. I want to make sure that we lift up Tenuity. Give us a quick commercial about Tenuity.
So we are aiming to be your go-to for the triopoly. So Google and Microsoft for search, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn for social, and all things Amazon. So I started working for, at the time, was Legacy Elite SEM a long time ago. And since then, we've merged with our peers for all the different industries. So we like to say that our goal is to grow businesses, not just an individual customer. Our tagline is happy to grow you. But so a lot of what I just talked about, what excites me about the future of the web is what excites me about the future of Tenuity, where we're looking at people, we're looking at customer lifetime value, we're looking at big data analytics, and then deploying it in individual channels where they see fit, where they fit in the customer journey.
And you got a fleet of SEMs to be able to help you there as well. All right, so you're going to be speaking at HeroConf in Austin in April, we hope.
No.
Okay.
No more April.
No more April.
I'll be speaking at HeroConf sometime. We don't know when it's going to be.
Any thoughts about that? I mean, it's just tearing apart all these conferences, obviously, and so you wish them all the best to be able to recover from this.
It's going to be an interesting adventure. A lot of people are trying a lot of different things. I mean, those of you who have been to a lot of conferences, there's value in the speeches and what people have to say, but that's not all the value. All the value comes in the relationships that you build and the people that you talk to, and having a squad to bounce ideas off of, conversations at lunch.
Right.
So I think it was Aleda who did set up a remote conference, and I think that the people at Hero and my friends at the Paid Search Association were working on something as well. Trying to figure out again how to replicate the randomness, the bumping into the Q&A, the water cooler conversations. That's the hard part.
Yep.
Presenting a webcast isn't that hard, but I also don't think that's the only problem we have to solve for.
That's true.
We got to get a whole bunch of people excited again, because that's the whole point of these conferences.
Absolutely. So we wish all the best in the future, and we'll certainly watch from afar. And if we can get you back on the show in the future, we'd certainly love to have you, because you're a fun guy, and you're certainly well versed in this space. And good luck managing 60 odd SEMs. I mean, that's data galore, but man, there's probably a lot of introverts in that space, right?
I don't manage. We like to say that we're an upside down pyramid, so I support the team of 60 odd. There are some introverts, but again, when we're thinking of a management perspective, that's my job to know who they are and to reach out to them, because I know they won't reach out to me.
Got it. All right. So we'll certainly want our audience to follow you on Twitter. That's Big A Little A, Big A Little A.
Big A Little A, the way that you're supposed to spell Aaron.
He did that. Cut his mic.
You set him up, I knock him down.
Wow. LinkedIn account, The Aaron Levy. Instagram, The Aaron Levy. And I tell you what, this will not go unchecked.
I just started a war.
Yeah, you see that game. Oh, I mean, with me and Jay Akunzo, we're talking Marvel, DC against Marvel, and we're always there. You did it, man. You did it. All right, so game on. Final thoughts on automation for you, sir.
It's a tremendously powerful tool, or a tremendously powerful suite of tools. It's an amplifier. That means that it makes the good better, but it also means it can make the bad worse. So
Amen.
You have to understand how it works and what it can do and what the potential pitfalls are, in addition to the good things that can happen.
Very good. All right. From all of us, thank you so much, Aaron. And we'll be certainly watching from afar and trying to graffiti the big E over everything that you do. Appreciate it, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. All right. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to Edge of the Web on YouTube. And if you're really feeling up to it today, drop over for a quick review over at iTunes. We certainly appreciate it. We certainly appreciate all the well wishes and feedback that we get from our listeners. Be sure to check out all the must-see videos and much more over at edgeofthewebradio.com. That's edgeofthewebradio.com. And next week, we are certain, I think, to a particular degree, that we're going to be having Amy Bishop, but stay tuned, and you'll certainly be updated if that changes. From all of us over at Edge of the Web, stay safe, stay well, and do not be a piece of cyber driftwood. We'll talk to you next week, and maybe not from the studio, but we'll certainly be broadcasting. So from all of us, thanks so much, and see you next week. Bye-bye.